Hi everyone, it's me again for another round of video presentation. And for this time, I will be discussing a dissertation entitled A Grounded Theory for Leveraging College Athletics, Establishing Organizational Structures and Using Revenue and Visibility to Support the University Mission by Torie A. Johnson in 2017. Once again, I am Philip Jason, the host, your discussant. To begin with, let us try to know who is Torie A. Johnson. Johnson graduated or earned her bachelor's degree at Baylor University in 2001. She then took her MA at University of Alabama in Birmingham in 2005. And this dissertation that I will be presenting was presented at the University of Georgia for her Doctor of Education. Well, let's try to take note that Johnson has been involved in higher education administration for more than 14 years, working first in intercollegiate athletics and now as executive director of the SECU and the academic initiative of the Southeastern Conference. To begin with, allow me to start my presentation with this quotation from Bill Battle, a former director of athletics of the University of Alabama. And according to Battle, is everything too high profile? Yes, it probably is. Where there's money, there's corruption too often. But if the leadership is right, then it can be a wonderful thing. So that's how Bill Battle first take corruption or leadership at the same time. Now, intercollegiate athletic programs and the universities they represent are appropriately described as interdependent enterprises led by the same chief executive officer who is the president. Accordingly, scholars and stakeholders have long maintained that the president must be attentive to the intercollegiate athletic program to ensure it operates in alignment with the institution's teaching, research, and service mission, and to preserve his or her own career. It is important to clarify that intercollegiate athletic programs are not significantly influential on every American university campus. Many institutions support programs within the structure of the National Collegiate Athletic Association, known as NCAA, the highest governing body for college sports in the United States, that do not leave stakeholders wondering if the programs are a threat to the mission and reputation of the university. Now, it is also important to note that although an intercollegiate athletic program is typically described in aggregate, the sports of football and men's basketball are usually of primary concern to scholars and stakeholders. As such, for the purpose of this investigation, intercollegiate athletics collectively refers to those programs supported by the universities that have teams competing at the highest NCAA level, known as the NCAA Autonomy 5, or the NCAA Power 5 universities, thereby generating the most revenue from football and men's basketball, expending the most resources on football and men's basketball, and who ultimately face the most internal and external criticism about how their intercollegiate athletic programs operate within the university structure and support the university's mission. According to Estler and Nelson in 2005 and Toma in 2003 and others, these types of programs often influence university governance and administration, and that influence has led to tensions in higher education that expand beyond individual campuses to also include government and corporate sectors. According to Thielen in 1996, in the mid to late 1880s, when the first students at the earliest American institutions of higher learning sports adds to their list of extracurricular activities, questions swirled about the impact of such behavior on a college campus. Now, some observers wondered if the students would begin to focus more on athletics than on their academic pursuits, or if athletics would become more important than the institution's attention to instruction and learning. Well, today, more than a century later, scholars and stakeholders continue to debate how intercollegiate athletics might support or detract from the university mission. For the statement of purpose, the purpose of this investigation was to devise a grounded theory that explains how presidents, along with their provost and director of athletics, position universities to leverage their high-profile intercollegiate athletic programs in support to the university's mission. Undergirding this investigation was an understanding that presidents must initially determine the most appropriate ways to leverage these unique enterprises within the university. The qualitative study included a two-phase research design that relied on document and interview analysis, and the research question outlined below guided this investigation. Now, for the research questions, we have three research questions in this dissertation. And the first one, how do presidents communicate the value of high-profile intercollegiate athletic programs to the university community? This happened on the premise that scholars have questioned its ability to further the teaching, the research, and service mission of a university, an ability to enhance the university's reputation given its vulnerability to scandal. Secondly, how do presidents establish organizational structures relative to oversight of high-profile intercollegiate athletic programs? This happens on the premise that oversight of intercollegiate athletics has not been limited to presidents and senior administrators. Faculty members have provided useful leadership, and recently, governing boards have been more engaged in scandal. And thirdly, which is the last one, how do presidents and senior administrators orchestrate the use of revenue, visibility, and or other opportunities afforded by high-profile intercollegiate athletic programs? So the influence of television on intercollegiate athletics is broad, but scholars most often point to its revenue and visibility offerings as their benefits. For the grounded theory qualitative research design, according to Corbin and Strauss in 2008 and Miriam and Cecil in 2016, the goal of qualitative research is to gain deep insights into how participants understand and make sense of the world and of their experiences in that world. And for this case, the purpose and the sampling documents of participants, it is consistent with qualitative research design that the researcher used the purposeful sampling to identify research subjects, both for documents and participants. This technique is preferred to qualitative research because the sample represents the expertise as well as defined by the researcher rather than the generalities. Although this study was only concerned with the NCAA Autonomy 5 universities and not all intercollegiate athletics or even other NCAA levels, it was virtually impossible to analyze documents and conduct interviews. The researcher focused on universities from NCAA 50 Autonomy 5 conferences in the Southeast region. And this study was conducted in two phases, what I've said earlier, and each phase involved purposeful sampling. The researcher then used information gathered from the document analysis phase to aid in the purposeful selection of 4 of those universities for additional exploration via interviews with senior administrators serving those institutions. And lastly, the essence of this investigation was perspectives from presidents and those who work closely with presidents on the use of intercollegiate athletics in support of the university mission. Participants were given the opportunity to remain anonymous, and only one individual asked not to be identified. For the conclusion based on the research design, the purpose of this empirical investigation was to devise a substantive theory that explains how, again, the presidents, along with provosts and directors of athletics, positioning universities to leverage high-profile intercollegiate athletics in order to support the university's mission. This is an important topic for examination since academia and intercollegiate athletics are not likely to be divorced within the context of American higher education, and the latter often overshadows the former. By relying on the perspectives of those charged with oversight of these unique enterprises, the emergent theory is fully grounded in data gathered from the individuals whose decisions ultimately shape the entire university community. For the summary of findings, based on the data collected from documents and several administrators at universities supporting some of the most visible intercollegiate athletic programs in the United States, the grounded theory of leveraging college athletics emerged, and it is built on the 5 tenets of experience, understanding, appreciation, acceptance, and integration. So this substantive theory explains that at these universities, the senior-most administrators tend to have the prior experience at institutions with high-profile intercollegiate athletic programs. And this prior experience fosters an enlightened understanding of operations and goals of the intercollegiate athletic program. Furthermore, with an enlightened understanding, administrators begin to appreciate how the intercollegiate athletic program might be beneficial to the university, while administrators appreciate the positives associated with the intercollegiate athletic program. They also accept the negative consequences such as high-profile programs might bring to the institution. So once senior administrators accept the reality of the high-profile intercollegiate athletic programs, their aim is to integrate it as much as possible into the university, part of their culture in order to support its mission. So these 5 tenets together form the grounded theory of leveraging college athletics. For the conclusion, intercollegiate athletics is a unique enterprise within higher education. No other country in the world has attempted to pair competitive sports with the academic environment. Initially, American universities simply tried to keep pace with students' desires. They have a range of extracurricular activities available to them. But as the activities became more complex, specifically the sports of football, administrators become more involved in providing oversight. Today, some of the most highly respected universities in the world support the intercollegiate athletic programs that bring unprecedented amounts of revenue and visibility to the institution. However, in exchange for revenue and visibility, administrators at these universities are regularly faced with criticisms of commercialism and academic deficiencies. So that's a problem. Most administrators have responded to such critics by first acknowledging a measure of truth wherein, but then touting the success of the student athletes, which is made possible by the revenue the program generates and is particularly important as university funding sources decline. So the aim of this qualitative study, again, was to uncover theory outlining how administrators and universities supporting high-profile intercollegiate athletic programs leverage them to benefit the institution. So again, based on the finding earlier, the following tenets were made: the experience, understanding, appreciate, accept, and integrate. And lastly, in addition to grounded theory, it was apparent from this investigation that senior administrators were extremely proud of the intercollegiate athletic program generally and how it supports the institution specifically, despite well-documented and well-publicized challenges. Also, athletic administrators expressed a genuine desire for their programs to be viewed as an integral part of the university. Instead, there was an unspoken agreement that such activity was appropriate and expected. And finally, oversight of intercollegiate athletics is a complicated matter, and despite the empirical foundations of the grounded theory of leveraging college athletics, it cannot be summarily explained. Oversight of intercollegiate athletics involves a litany of internal and external stakeholders and has a remarkably complex history. But to now have a new substantive theory that sparks or that speaks to this particular aspect of higher education administration is important for improving the leadership of high-profile intercollegiate athletics within the university context. So that would be all for my presentation. But as a takeaway, allow me to reshare again the quotation that I have presented when I started this presentation. Just like in any field, not only in sports, not only in handling universities, not only in athletics, if the leadership is right, then it can be a wonderful thing. So we hope we can have leaders who are rightful enough to create positive impact, who can create positive ripples of change in our community, in our institution, and every field that they belong. That would be all. Should you have questions, my lines are open. Please visit me on my email ad. Thank you.